Hey Flutter Dev, welcome to today's how-to video, where we're going to explore Draggable, LongPressDraggable and DragTarget in order to implement cool drag and drop functionalities like your favorite project management tool has. So stick till the end and let's get started. Let's start with a simple image that we load from network. Let's load it. Yeah, so maybe we can also reduce it. Let's wrap it with a sized box. Maybe make it a bit smaller, maybe 100 by 100. Yeah, let's also make it here a square. In order to move this image, we can simply wrap it with the draggable. And also, the feedback is a required widget, and it will represent how we move the widget. Let's, for beginners, just add a container, which is also 100 by 100, and set the color to be maybe colors, just to see how this works actually. So once we click on the image, it starts moving immediately, and as we can see, we have this red square. We can, if you want, we can use the same widget for this. So let's do that. So if we click and move, we can see that we're actually moving the image. And the Draggable also supports child when dragging. So that child will be actually what's left behind. So again, we can maybe set the container to be maybe a gray one. Colors gray. And let's set the width and the height. So now once we start dragging, we will leave a blank space, or well, gray space behind. If we want to be a bit more modern, we can just use the same widget. And now we can wrap it with maybe opacity. And set the opacity to maybe 0.5. Let's see. Yeah, this looks a bit better. But as we see, we have a problem. We can move the image. Once we release it, it's back to the beginning. So we can fix this in two ways. And let's start with the first way. The first way is actually, instead of using a column, we can use a stack and actually remember the offset. Offset. And let's set it to 0 for the beginning. And now we can use this offset to position and the draggable. Let's wrap it with a positioned. And let's set the left to be offset dot x and the top offset dot y. And we have callback methods from Draggable. We have onDrag started, drag updated, cancel, and ended. We can use the onDrag update method since it's giving us details about the position, local global position, and offset. OnDraggable canceled is when the draggable is cancelled, so we can maybe check the last position and leave it there. For example, if the user moves his finger off screen, to maybe leave it there or move it back. And also details, we have details once the drag ends, so properly ends in the sense that the draggable was moved to a drag target. And we also have onDrag completed, which just informs us everything has finished. So let's use onDrag updated, and let's store the details. We can set details.delta. We can also use the global local position. Actually, we want to use the global position, not the delta, since the delta is called. The delta is the difference each time the onDrag update is called, so it's really small, only if we want to actually increase each time the offset, but we can just use the global position. And also we need to set the state here so that everything is updated. And let's try now. Yeah, so as we can see, it works. So maybe we want actually to leave the empty child here. So we could just use a sized box dot shrink. And now when we start moving, nothing is left behind, as we can see. And then once we release it, we have some small offsets. So we can also fix that by changing the drag anchor strategy. So let's also write that. Drag anchor strategy. And we can return the pointer and drag anchor strategy. Let's pass in the required parameters. So basically what the pointer does, it displays the feedback anchor at the position of the touch that started it, instead of the other one which had the offset. The default one is child drag anchor, which displays the feedback anchor at the position of the original child. So let's see if this works now. Still have some small offset here. Yeah, so maybe we can reduce the offset by the height of the widget. So let's try that. And let's try the X coordinate to be actually 0. Once you click, yeah. Cool. So as we can see, yeah, it's snapping to the top left corner. But once we release it, it's there where it's started. We can also limit the axis on which the child can move. So we can choose either horizontal or vertical. That will limit the child not to move up or down. Or if you change it to vertical, it will only go up or down and not left and right. So that can be helpful for some use cases when you have a column or a row so that the child can go out of it. And also a useful thing to override actually is the data. So we can set the data to be, for example, a string, and also pass it here. So defining the type of the draggable and also the data is really important once we want to release the draggable on a drag target. Let's move the draggable into a drag target. So let's add a new position. And let's set it to be at the bottom. Let's make it stretched. And the child is a drag target. Let's override the required builder. And it's returning a child. So maybe we can just return a container for the beginning. As set the colors to be maybe green. Also maybe height 100. Yeah. So we can define the drag target, what it should accept. So if we say int, it will not accept the string type. We could override that. Let's also just move the position below, so it's above the drag target. So as we can see, in the drag target has the builder, which is required. We can use the onWillAccept with details. This onWillAccept is deprecated, and onAccept also. So we can use the new ones, onWillAccept with details and onAccept with details. These are called when our drag target is over it. So let's demonstrate that. So onWillAccept with details, and let's just print out the details. And we can also return false. It is required to return either false or true. If you want to accept it, we return true, otherwise we return false. And we can print out the details of this object that is hovering here. So in this case, it's expecting an int, since we said that the drag target is an int. And if you go here, it will not trigger it, since it's not the same data type. So if we change it to string here and try again, now it's actually accepting it, or well, checking if we should accept it or not, and printing out this as an image. So if we say yes, it will accept it. Nothing is happening, of course, but we now need to actually override on accept with details, that we know that the draggable was accepted. So here we get the drag target with details. So in this case, we need, for example, to store it here. So we can create a list of strings and say that we have images. We will define a couple of them. And we can say also that we have accepted images, which is empty for now. So we can use the seed to get random images, and let's define a couple of them. Let's maybe define 3. We can actually use a builder to build them. So let's define this also. Instead of having a position, let's go over the images and let's do a map. And let's convert this to a positioned image actually. And let's use the URL. List, and let's add that list here. Great. So and let's also maybe set let's remove the offset so all the images start at the top left corner. Great. Now we have 3 images here, one beneath another. And now we can actually do a drag and drop. And on accept, we can actually remove it from the list of images. Images.remove. We also need here to map the URL so that we can remove the details.data from the list and add it actually to the accepted ones. So we can use the accepted images and add that URL. Details.data. So let's check if this works. We also need to set the state so that everything is rebuilt. So 1 image removed, 2 images removed. Great, let's try again. 1, 2, 3. Now we want actually also to show the images on the accepted area, right? So we can just use also again a builder, and in the container we can build a child, which can be a row in this example, and add the children, where we can just map the accepted images to an image network and pass in the URL. Let's rename it actually to URL. And that should be fine. Yeah. So let's do it again. We have 3 images. Once we drop an image, it's staying there, again, dropping it there, and again. So that's how the drag target works. Override methods like only if we entered and then left, we can just get a callback. Maybe we want to change the color of the background, and on move also if it's moving a drag target. So let's maybe also override on move to change the color. We can do it here. So on move and details. So let's set the color. Drag target background color, and let's set it here to maybe gray. And if it's moving, we can set the state and set that the color is maybe green, like we want to accept it. And on leave, we can revert the color back to be also again gray. Let's see how this works again, setting the state here. And let's do a reload. And let's use the color actually. Let's set the color here for the container. Let's set the color for the container. Cool. So once we move it here, nothing happens, but once we enter there, as we can see, it's becoming green and we're moving around. So as we can see, once we leave, it's gray, but again, we want to turn it to gray once we accept it. So we also need to set that. And accept, let's return the color to gray. So let's check now. As we can see, it works just fine. Let's add some spacing here just to move it left by 50. We can use the images.index of URL and multiplied by 50. So they are spaced apart, or by 100 in this case. So if we, for example, want to do a long press here, as we can see, immediately clicking it moves the image, but we can use, instead of draggable, LongPressDraggable, which will actually just behave like or wait for a long press. So clicking here and dragging, nothing happens, but when I click and wait, then the drag happens. And we can specify the a delay here, so we can maybe change the delay to be duration and milliseconds, maybe 200. We want it to happen faster. And the rest is basically the same. Now is a great time to take a small break. Hit that like and subscribe button. Stay hydrated. And continue watching. So let's recreate your favorite project management tools capability to drag and drop tasks, stories, cards, or however you like to call them. Let's get started by first defining the dark theme. So I just use this color scheme .dark theme and change the primary color. The next thing I prepared for us is to have a map that will contain task status and the list of tasks. We also have the scroll controller, which will enable us to scroll horizontally the list view when you start dragging. We also have a counter. Once we click the floating action button to create a new task, it will increase the counter so that the title can display the counter number. We will use the timer to schedule and cancel the animations of moving the list horizontally, and we will have a helper variable boolean which will hold if the user dragged to the left or to the right, so that we don't schedule multiple timers in the same direction. And the next thing, we just initialize the map for each task status that we have. We have to do, in progress, in review, and done, and it contains a display title and a background color that we're going to use. We also got the screen size, which we're going to use in a bit. And here we have a scaffold with an app bar and a column with an expanded padding and a custom scroll view. Why don't we use a list view? Because the list view will recycle our hidden columns with the task status. So we are going to use the draggable functionality, and it will be recreated so the drag will stop working. So that's why we need a custom scroll view. Now that we have the basic setup here, we can also look at the floating action button, which just adds in the tasks map under the to-do key a new task, which has the title to do and the status to do. It also increases the counter and sets the state so that the list redraws the item. We will later define the move main list horizontally method. We can have a look at the row status card, which represents one status, for example, one to do. As we can see, it's just a container with a box decoration that looks like a card with rounded borders, and it contains the display of the status, some padding here with a divider, and an expanded drag target, so we can drag the tasks between the columns here, and a list widget to show those tasks. Let's have a look at the list status column widget. It has task status, the list of tasks that is going to show the screen size, and on drag and cancel drag callback methods, which we are going to use shortly. In the builder method, we have if the list of tasks is empty, we're showing a container with a text drag a task here to indicate to the user that he can drop a task in that column. If we have something in the tasks list, then we're using the list view builder in order to build those tasks. Each task is draggable. So as we can see, we have the child, which is a task widget. Also the feedback widget is also a task widget, and the child when dragging is an opacity of that task widget. So the onDragUpdate method is checking if you're going to the right 80% or higher, or to the left under 20% of the screen width, in order to call onDrag true, which indicates right, or false, which indicates left. If the user is in center, we're going to cancel that drag. We're also canceling the drag on drag and complete and cancel. And let's have a look at the task widget. The task widget is just a simple widget containing the task and the background color that is going to show. As we can see, it's just a simple card widget containing only a text. So our first step is actually to build the columns here. We're going to map the task status enum values. So let's rename it to status. And we can add 3 dots so that we add that to the list directly. We want to call the row status card and pass in the tasks and other necessary parameters. So let's save this. We want to add the task so we can get it from the tasks map using the status and give it a default empty list. We can also pass in here the status, the screen size. As we said, we are going to use it, and we have also these methods on task accepted, and it's returning us the task and new status on drag method, and it's giving us is right and cancel drag. Great. So if we do this and if we save it right now, we can see that we're getting an error since we're using a simple widget in a custom scroll view, which accepts actually slivers. So we can wrap the row status card with sliver to box adapter. If we save it now and do our reload, we can see that we have our cards here that represent the status to do, in progress, in review, and done. We have the indicator that you can drag a task here. So let's create a couple of tasks, just clicking on the plus button. And now we can actually start dragging. So if you drag from to do, in progress, nothing happens since we didn't implement anything in task accepted. So in order to accept this task in the new column, we need to actually remove it from the current tasks. So we need to call task.status and remove and pass in the task. And since it's nullable in the hash map, we just add the question mark there and add it now under the new status. We add the new task. We need to create a new task here and set the title to be task.title and status to be new status. We also need to set the state so that the UI is re-rendered. Let's try again. As we can see, we moved successfully from one column to another. Let's see if it's going to the other was properly. Yes, so everything works just fine. Now, the drag obviously doesn't work. We need to implement the drag. So when we call the onDrag method, we need to actually call the move main list and pass in is right. And cancel drag will actually just call the timer.cancel and also set the last move right to null. We also need to do the same here. So you're checking if the last move right is equal to is right. If it's equal, so that means that the previous onDrag was called on the same side as the current one is ongoing. So we don't want to start a new timer. So we're going just to return it. Otherwise, we're going to set this to be equal to the new value. Let's now implement the move main list method. So what we're going to do here is actually, first off, we're going to cancel the timer if it's ongoing and create a new timer. So let's create a new timer, set the duration to be in milliseconds, 100. And now, since we created a new timer, we need to move the main list scroll controller and call animate2 and check is it right. If it's right, we just add 50 in that offset, otherwise we subtract 50. We can set the duration to be duration milliseconds 50, and the curve can be curves, and maybe is in. And let's see when we save this, let's see what happens. So when we drag an item and move it to the right, it's not repeating itself. So it's only moving it once. If you go to the left, again, only once. So once this animation finishes, we need to call our cells recursively. So let's do that. So since we only set to animate to a specific position, we need to get the main controller and call the offset and add to that offset that specified value. Now we should start moving it. Let's check. Yes, it's moving it now. As we can see, it's a bit weird when it goes to the end. It's trying to overscroll. So that should also happen for the left side. As we can see, if you're moving the cursor back to the middle, stop scrolling. So let's fix that overscroll. We can check if the main controller offset is smaller or equal to 20. And if it's not moving to the right, then we can actually cancel the timer and return. We don't want to do anything. If we move to the left side, as we can see, now everything is fine, since we are checking if the offset is smaller or equal to 20, and we just cancel and don't call ourselves recursively. Now we're going to check for the right side. We can check if the main scroll controller offset is bigger than or equal in order to get the max offset. We can use the main scroll controller position.max scroll extend. If we do this, we can again do the same here. If we save this, let's check. We pick an item, go to the left, everything's fine. Going to the right, still fine. And at the end, nothing happens. So that's good. How does this work? You might ask. So in the row status card, we define the drag target in which we can drop the item. So the drag target is the full height of the card. We say that we accept each draggable, which is of type task. And once accepted, we call the task accepted, which we already implemented. We're just adding to the list here. Well, we're first removing from the list and then adding to the new list under the new status and just calling set state. The next one is actually in the list view itself. So it has the on drag and cancel. Let's see what's going on there. So the list view, each item, as we said, is a draggable of type task, which we are passing in here. On drag update, we are checking if the user is trying to drag right. We are checking if the global position of the draggable item is bigger than 80% of the screen width, and then if it's bigger, we're calling on drag and saying that it's going to the right. Otherwise, if we are checking if the global position is lower than 20% of the screen width, and we're saying we are dragging to the left. Otherwise, if the user is in the middle of 20 and 80%, we're canceling the drag. And as we said, also we're canceling the drag when the drag ends or completes, or when draggable is cancelled. Congrats for sticking till the end. As we saw, implementing drag and drop functionality with Flutter is pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, suggestions, or would like to see a specific topic, please leave a comment down below. Thanks, and until next time.